Major Joy Dasgupta, company commander of assaulting company of 18 Grenadiers, was tasked to launch an attack on a tactically important feature Hump on 13th and 14th of June 1999. He meticulously planned his course of action. Undaunted by resistance from well-fortified and well-stocked Pakistan-backed intruders and difficulty posed by hostile snow-capped terrain at over 15,000 feet, the officer instilled confidence and motivation in his men. While advancing, one enemy bunker which had 2 machine guns seriously impeded the advance of the assaulting column. He displayed quick response and forethought and moved with a small team to tackle the enemy position with total disregard for his personal safety. He closed in with the bunker and charged inside, killing 4 intruders in close combat. His action motivated his troops to press on. In an ably led operation of 24 hours spread over the night and the next day afternoon, despite severe cold and fatigue, he was able to capture the Hump, thereby obviating the enemy's observation and domination over Drass, Tololing and Bimbat Nala. Major Joy Dasgupta displayed exceptional courage, bravery, astute tactical planning, and able junior leadership by his personal example in the face of the enemy. He was awarded the Sena Medal for this act of valor.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Conversations. I'm Suresh Kocha. And today I have with me a very special guest, somebody whom I wanted to speak from a long time. Been meeting him but never got to talk to him officially since he was serving in the army, and I didn't want to get into his regular mode of work, which does prevent him from speaking directly to media. But today I have Colonel Joy Dasgupta, Sena Medal, and of course, a man who has seen action up front and personal. And when we are talking of Operation Sindoor and other facts, we will definitely have to look at Colonel Joy Dasgupta and ask him his experience of various things. Colonel Dasgupta was commissioned into the 18 Grenadiers through the short service entry. And of course, he, as we all know, he displayed exemplary courage and leadership beyond the call of duty of the enemy, and was conferred with the Sena Medal, gallantry for the capture of the Tololing Heights and from the position of the enemy. And this is something that Colonel has spoken to me off record, but I think as a Hyderabadi, both of us can understand how proud of you we are, Colonel, of you for having done what you did. But I will let you talk more and less of me. He was also, Colonel Dasgupta was also a part of the counter-insurgency and then counter-terrorism operations in Jammu Kashmir. That is Operation Rakshat 1 and 2. Was a part of Operation Vijay, a part of the UN peacekeeping force in Sierra Leone, which is basically the Operation Kukri. And then, of course, into his corporate life. But more importantly, when Operation Parakram came about, redonned the uniform and got back into action in territorial army. Ladies and gentlemen, that is a very short introduction of Colonel Joy Dasgupta. And for him to speak on, I will let him speak more than me doing it, as I suggested. Colonel, welcome to the show. Welcome to Conversations. And you can start with your journey in the army, sir. Where did you begin and what all you have done? I mean, I know it's a half an hour is too short a time, but we will try and condense it to the extent possible.
Firstly, sir, thank you very much for giving such a kind of an introduction, which I don't have to say anything much more beyond that. And it was really great that after coming to the civil life and formally again coming out into a very open social media is something. And since we have been friends from long, and one is an informal interaction, another is the one, and I understand how things move. And let me tell you, sir, it has been a wonderful journey, and the making of a nation, the development of a nation, and what is the role of the armed forces, because I was from the armed forces and I was one of those lucky few which have been to the corporate and then came back. So I can discern the contribution level of nation building at all levels. Unfortunately, what happens is we end up romancing the armed forces too much, and not that they don't deserve it. And but in equal might, I feel the corporate, the civil society, and that's where Made in India concept also comes into play, where the present government has put in a great impetus on Made in India. So with my stint in corporate, I had a very wonderful understanding of civil military liaison. Now, what a civil military liaison would get into thing in the future of our country needs, where dual purpose projects, both from a military perspective and from a civilian perspective, the corporate perspective, which is mutually beneficial, is the next order of the day. And about me, I would just say that yes, sir. I mean, I've just been one of those lucky few to have gotten exposure to be in the battlefield, and I was lucky to survive. I'll just thank God for that.
I mean, you are very complimentary with yourself. I think I have, in fact, when you're speaking actually, and when I feel proud of you, because being a army, I wouldn't call you a veteran because I think you're still looking ready for action any day. But I think carry on with what you did in terms of your entry from a short service commission into the 18 Grenadiers, and wherever you go. I don't know if you want to hold back something, please do hold back and speak about what exactly you need. And more importantly, let us try and understand for the youngsters who are willing to get into the army or the armed forces. Here is a gentleman who can talk more about it. Carry on, Colonel.
Well, sir, it has been a remarkable journey, which was both learning and quite, I went for the love of it, but that love was tested quite a lot. I mean, you go for the love of it, and the love gets tested a lot, and these are the, things which one goes through the emotional turmoil when you lose a man, when you go through the certain situations which don't go as per your teachings that has been taught to you, because that's how life throws googlies in life. So let me put it this way, sir. I mean, when I joined the army, I'm an alumnus of Officers Training Academy, OTA, Chennai. So when we passed out, and I got 18 Grenadiers, got commissioned into it. And believe me, with my height and everything, and the troops, an average height was about 5'8" to 6. So they were quite surprised to see a young officer, which was quite a short height, and this thing. So they thought that whether he'll be able to match up or not. But that's how it goes on. And we both tested each other, the men and the officers. And believe me, I got accepted in the process. And that was one of the most defining moments, specifically in terms of how human resources and man management plays a very important role. And then I realized that how being an errant son, or a slightly being a rebellious son, and how tough it becomes for the parents to handle. And was able to template that even in the unit, whether as a company officer or as a company commander. And that's where the first learning started, that it's not only management, it is also exercising command and control, because that's where the entire thing starts. Because it's not always management and doing jugaad, kar lena yaar. No, there's no kar lena. These are the rules, these are to be followed. This is discipline, this is to be done. Unfortunately, due to socioeconomic changes, we do see, because the people come from the same society as we come, soldiers are made, they're trained. Very rare few come have an instinct to it. Now, this is where the academies and the wonderful training which the academies do, the training process starts. And it's not only with the question of a soldier, it's the same thing with an airman or a naval person. I mean, the kind of resources, the kind of planning, the kind of money that is spent by the organization and the government to train one soldier who's to be a very good killing machine is something which is worth something. And in fact, our selection process is something much more, logical, much more complex, and very thought-provoking. It's not that just because you're able to answer questions is not the thing. It is like, what is a basic thought, basic integrity, basic this thing. And so perhaps this organization's template is to be reinforced by other organizations, be it in the corporate or for that matter, even in other government service system. Things perhaps will become much more easier.
That is
this is
wonderful,
what
Colonel.
my take.
Yeah. That, I think the way we look at it in terms of when you look at the armed forces in India, we still have that huge amount of respect that we hold out for you, for the
Yes.
forces. And even when you're out of the uniform, we still refer to you by your title, even though you may be a retired person. That goes with everybody, those who are in the system. But my question, obviously, to you would be one thing very specific is you are involved in the counter-insurgency and insurgency operations in Jammu Kashmir to tackle them. Just wanted to know from you as to how was it? Was it baptism by fire that you kind of got into it, and how did you go about it, sir?
I'll just say that newly commissioned, I was there in a modified field area where the unit was. Then we moved out to J&K for insurgency. And Colonel R.R. Gadkari, one of my first COs, who took the battalion to J&K, and we were in one of the most hot sectors, the sectors of Patan and the Baramulla area. And in those days, Operacrux was at its peak in terms of involvement of the localites and this thing. That was the initial phase of the insurgency, where the normal common people of J&K got misled, and due to homegrown terrorisms, terror groups which had come into play. And unfortunately, it was during that period where the Indian Army was brought in to control, which was basically a policing job. Now, with that kind of an administrative failure, your baptism has started right from the day you've put your foot into the valley. There was nobody to trust you. I mean, your end flow, the civil administration was defunct. I mean, it was non-existent. I mean, at that kind of a situation, this thing, I mean, you could hear the Azadi slogans going on their own and everything. And it has taken, the resilience of the Indian Army and the armed forces. And that's where my then CEO, Colonel Gadkari, he says, यहाँ पर है देख लेना नुकसान भी नहीं होना I mean, he said नुकसान भी नहीं होना पर साला ठोको इनको. तो आई एज यूजुअल यंगस्टर, सर नुकसान भी नहीं होना, ठोको, व्हाट डू यू मीन? बोले यार यू शुड रेस्पेक्ट देम, but at the same time you should. Yeah, what is this? Am I a god that I should respect them also? This. So that's how you are molded, and it gets into it. It needs a organizational ethos and a culture. It's not that you just run amok and say just that everybody's there. I mean, that kind of sacrifice this thing. So it was baptism of fire, no doubt. And we had certain very good kills, and the info flow was very difficult to get, but we managed and we did it. And after that, the unit was then sent to obviating, that is the Kargil, this thing from, and this is again a sudden switch of the unit from Op Rakshak to Op Vijay. So from CI mode to the conventional mode So your entire, it's not only the thought process, your battle plan, your procedures, your equipment, profile, everything keeps changing. Because at that time in insurgency, you are dealing with your own people. You don't use maximum force. Whereas in the case of this, it was, and by the time you could realize how thing, and then now Brigadier Kushal Thakur, then Colonel Kushal Thakur, he took over the reins, and he was no greenhorn. I mean, he said, "Yaar, task mila to karna hai," and enemy, the information was nil, zilch. We were suddenly put on there. It's there, all well documented and all. It's not that just this thing, because to be very honest, that was one of the times that in that sector in the theater, we were taken unawares when they come and they have occupied those heights, and it was initially termed as, hello.
Yeah,
It
Colonel,
was
that is
initially,
that. Yeah, that is where I'm sorry I interrupted you there. I mean, this is coming out
yeah,
to an interesting thought because moving
yeah,
from a conventional, as you say, a policing job which army was doing in J&K
yeah,
to a
yeah,
full-fledged battle at Kargil,
yeah,
and of course at a disadvantage because the Pakistanis were already sitting at heights, and we had to approach the heights and capture those heights. I know
yeah.
you had a tremendous victory there in Kargil, but take us through what happened with your unit and how did you go about the famous Tololing capture?
The unit, the then CO, Colonel Kushal Thakur was on leave, and we were on the CICT role. And then 2IC of the unit, Colonel R. Vishwanathan, now posthumous Veer Chakra, he was the one who got the battle orders for the unit to be inducted and moved to the location of what do you call, forward area. When at that point of time, that time there was no mobile phones, no social media. Your communication was only and only through established military means of radio sets. And you never had even STD booths in remote areas like J&K. So you don't even come to know what really is happening. Now, it was one of those things, okay, we have to go move ahead, and we have to go. And suddenly we used to see a lot of vehicle movements going around in the national highway. So we were shocked. I mean, what was it? We were not, and bombardment we were able to hear the shellings and everything. But we moved on, and that was where, when we got inducted in, it was, you can say, ghost town. The entire Drass was a ghost town, right from Matayan to this thing. And there we could see shells, broken buildings and everything. And in the meantime, Thakur sir, he rejoined from his leave. He voluntarily came back. And then 18 Grenadiers consisted of all the youngsters at that point of time. And, Colonel R. Vishwanathan sir, he used to say, when he was officiating in Sonamag, he was one of those old timers, ex-NDA. And yaar, aaj acha murga banao. Today we'll have perhaps will be our last meal together. Rest we will all go in separate directions. So we didn't understand the implications and the meaning at that point of time. Newly commissioned officers, most of us were. It was at that time Captain Randir Singh Rathore, self, Captain Sachin Nambalkar, Captain Nope Singh Rathore, then Karamveer Singh. We were all Aveshpal Singh. So what happened was, okay, with this thing. So he said, now whatever you have learned in the academy and what you have learned in this thing, put that to use. That was what his comments were. And in between, Thakur sir also joined back after 2 days, voluntarily rejoined. And from there, we moved to our location. And that is where 16 Grenadiers was already the holding formation at that point of time. and that's how we got inducted into the real battlefield.
The real battlefield being the mandate to capture certain peaks, and you were assigned one of them, which is the Tololing
Yes,
peak. Can you tell us
yes.
the story of how that happens?
The present Tololing, what you see in picture now and at that point of time, there's a sea difference of after 26 years when I've been out during the Kargil reunion or Vijay reunion. It was a very inhospitable terrain at around about 11,200 to about 13,000 feet, the Tolling feature. Talking about with no tracks, no roads. I mean, this thing, and with the Tololing Nala, which is also known, which flows with the river there. We were told that you are supposed to capture that peak. Now, that is how the battle plan was made from different spurs. So it was the southern spur, the southwestern spur, the southeastern spur, the eastern spur, and the north was from the other side, from the enemy side. So that is how the plan was made into effect. But before that, there were logistic issues. Now, what were the logistic issues? For each man, you require who is to climb up on a mountain, you require at least 4 men to support that one fighting soldier with logistics, with let's say in terms of ammunition, reinforcement, in terms of food, water. So these were the practical things, and on top of it, any casualty, death, how it impacted the morale. Those are one of those things. And the unit, they made a very good this thing, the Ghataks, and what do you call, Bravo company made a good headway. And that is a time when we lost Major Adhikari. And at that point of time, the 2IC, Colonel R. Vishwanathan, he motivated the boys and he led a personal assault. And we lost Colonel R. Vishwanathan. Colonel Thakur, who was a commanding officer at that point of time, he literally was next to Colonel R. Vishwanathan when he was, gave his last blood. I mean, it was this thing. It was something very, when you lose men around, it there at that point of time, it makes you realize that either you have to go ahead totally, or we have to just the same. But then everything you cannot, with the mountainous terrain, you couldn't push forward also because of the roots. So that is where 18 Grenadiers, it firmed in. And then a multi-directional attack was done. Then the Ghataks were launched, where Sachin Nimbalkar. Then I went from the southwestern ridge. So on the map, when you, somebody from the down, when they give you directions after looking at a map, okay, you go from southwestern, we have gone. So when you go and they say that now attack Tolling from your side. So you see there's a deep ravine down below. You have to again get down the ravine, again climb up the Tololing. So that was not a very feasible option. So these were the, topography challenges. And in spite of that, and at that point of time, we were not having those equipment, mountaineering equipment and the boots. And we had got really not baptized only by fire, but got baptized in terms of equipment aspect also. We realized, what was it? And these were something which later things started flowing in, but that's how it happens.
Yeah, Colonel, that is exactly the point, because initially the surprise element that the Pakistanis thrust upon us in terms of sitting at those heights, and it was our locals who informed the army that there were some people sitting right on top of the mountain, and we know the rest is history. But when you were speaking about Colonel Vishwanathan, you choked at that point in time. I know it's very emotional
Yeah,
to lose your
it's a very
CO.
emotional thing.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
it's like a father figure usually in the army.
yeah.
And the question was, what happened when you were leading a men onto the Tololing peak? And when you started losing your men, your juniors, what was the feeling like, that you want to kind of fight on, or you wanted to withdraw? What was the feeling like?
To be very honest, one despair moment comes in that it feels that no, enough yaar, ab to kahan jana hai. But then, that is where your mettle comes in as an officer, as your training, and a certain amount of ethos does come into play. And that ethos comes only with, bonding and camaraderie. So if the leader is weak, then it's very difficult. Everything gets lost out. And that is why the quality of leadership of 18 Grenadiers was something of a very, very high standard. If you have noticed, all the battalions who have done well in wars, it is their officer-led battalions who have done very well. And you'll see most of the martyrs also have been young officers who have done. And it's, at that point of time, it is the question of do or die. अब अगर करना है तो अभी करना है. I mean, that is where it takes you that extra bit. And now from Tololing, after capture of Tololing, when we were told to capture Hump, I was supposed to go with a 2-company strength. Though the 2-company strength is supposed to be classical strength would be say 40 plus 40, 80. But with the kind of resources we had, with the kind of casualties we had, it was about 40 people which were there. Just at the HR, there was a Pak RT shell which landed exactly on our assembly point. And as it is a mountainous terrain in Tololing, we zigzag rocks, so you cannot disperse yourself. And as luck would have it, that one shell, and immediately about more than 20 were injured, and more than 11 people died on the spot. And the people who were injured were due to shrapnels. So the shrapnel injuries give more pain and more agony. Now look at that effect it has, and then evacuation. Because the more you have your comrades in pain there, it has an impact and effect onto it. So at that point of time, we thought the attack would be, postponed, say at least by 3-4 hours, or at least by a next day. But that is where the military, the doctrinal aspect, they said, no, the first success has been achieved. You have to press that success. Come what may, you have to go. And that's where that time Thakur sir, I told Thakur sir, मैं बोला सर मेरे पास तो बंदे ही नहीं है, कैसे जाए? बोला कोई नहीं, तू अभी एक काम कर, तू है ना ये 13 बंदे लेकर जा. अच्छा, you won't believe the MMG debt due to RT shell got destroyed. 2 of them injured, 1 of them killed. The MMG, the machine gun, was not working. It got splintered. Then the RL debt, the guy got injured, but this thing. Then I had to take. Now, this is where the multitasking, see, what I keep telling you, what a specialist, this thing. And when we talk of specialist, you should be able to handle all weapon system. Now, for that requires kind of a training or capacity building, which I realize it now, hindsight, at that point of time, who's going to fire? I mean, these are the challenges that came into play. And so we had to go, and we went. And, he promised me, Thakur sir, that Joy, tu na pura kabza karne ki zarurat nahi hai. Tu ja, you just take one bunker. I will send more manpower tomorrow. मैं पूरा ये करके निकाल लूंगा, because Tololing by that time was captured with two Rajrif. Yeah, so two Rajrif was the one. They did the final. I'll tell you what. There's something known as battle fatigue, and when 18 Grenadiers it pushed, we captured 95% of Tololing. It is a final top when you lose. Colonel R. Vishwanathan, the second in command, you lose Major Rajesh Singh Adhikari. Then when you lose your men, JCOs and everything, what happens is a certain, we all talk, I would be very wrong to say we were very upbeat, greatly having a high morale. I would just put it, say yes, a sense of battle fatigue comes into play. And then, that last push, which could have been done, but that battle fatigue of losing the top leadership, hauling and fetching the logistics from there to the top, that 95% of hard work and was done. So then it required fresh troops. So the fresh troops were two Rajrif. And an option was given. I mean, they said, "Yeah, Thakur, you have done wonderful till now. It's only a question of last 30 meters, yaar, to dekh le." I mean, this is what was told to him. Of course, on the set, So he says, "Sir, to be very honest, mere bande bikhre pade hue hain. Mountains, command and control. It's not like plane." So, what I'm trying to tell you, it is those kind of things. People don't, sitting in the drawing rooms would always pass judgments very beautifully and very easily and nicely. And that is a time then the higher leadership also understood, nahi, they require fresh troops now, fresh induction. So two Rajrif came, and believe me, that 30 meters, and here also I would like to share a very beautiful anecdote. When two Rajrif came, Major Padmapani Acharya, he from Hyderabad again, and he had come to my ridge, southwest, for recce. So first, hum dono and there was sniper shots and RT shelling going on intermittent. So as usual, Hyderabadi net mein, I knew his brother, the younger Acharya. तो गले वाले मिले तो बोला, जॉय तू बता कहां पर क्या करना है. मैं बोला, सर वहां है उनका पोस्ट, and that is from that place the ravine goes there and then it again climbs up to the Tololing. तो he says okay. तो बोला कि मैं बोला, सर अभी तो फायरिंग चल रही है, चाय तो नहीं पिला सकता अभी. अरे यार हैदराबादी हूं, चाय हो जाए पर जान जाए पर चाय ना जाए. I mean, this was the thing. Now, what I'm trying to say is when he said this, मावला चलो सर पक्का. तो हमने बड़ा मतलब चाय का बड़ा छुपा के उसको बनाया हुआ था. And then we had, and that was one of the most memorable teas. In fact, the last thing I met Padmapani Acharya sir there. And when they did the assault, they did, and when I came to know बाद में, he was again a fantastic, a phenomenal officer, and that's where young leadership comes into play. And then back from there, when Tololing was captured, they said, okay, the next target will be Hump. And Hump was again given to 18 Grenadiers. We had regrouped by then. And then my company was tasked to attack that. And unfortunately, the artificial took place. And when in Hump, the classical way we were told that you climb from the top. When I saw that, Itna man, I'm the man on ground. So when you are the man on ground, you don't have to listen to the top people. उनको काम से मतलब रखना है. So what I did was I went through the Nala, the re-entrant, and cut across two bunkers. I mean, I bisected Hump in between, where the Pakis were taken by surprise. And that is how we got Hump. And then it was a battle of bunker to bunker battle.
Wonderful.
So, and I'll say a bit of stroke of luck also played there. What happens is luck favors, as they say, the bold. In the Hump, with just 13 people, I was tasked to then go after losing 12 men at out of 40. And about 9 of them were injured. So, it was a ragtag kind of a force. Acha, chal, you come here, tune RL ye kiya hai. Acha, I'll tell you at that point of time, in a battlefield chaos. But there is something also known as battlefield common sense. And that is where the leader comes into play. How you are able to do it and how you are able to marshal the resources. And of course, not to forget the human emotional play of individual soldiers also. Unfortunately, we don't address to these points. Most of them will try to academically say, oh, we have surcharged, we have done great, we have done that. But marshaling those resources and then motivating and going ahead, and with, if the higher formation, the higher leadership doesn't push, and that's where ruthlessness come into play. And it is this ruthlessness that decides a victor. Compassion, empathy is at that point of time lost. A task is to be done, it is to be done. And with that kind of a thing, Hump was captured. And was captured not in the classical way, it was captured through a very different kind of a approach, where we bisected the Hump feature through a re-entrant and taking the enemy unawares. And that is how we were able to capture Hump.
Colonel Dasgupta, and I think that is where I think people who only heard of Kargil but never heard of the actual battle got a snapshot of what you and your brave men did astoundingly well in capturing those heights there. But coming home now, when you look at Kargil, and the next part of it was what happened with Operation Sindhu. We will discuss it in detail as we go along, maybe in the next podcast. But right now, the question that I would ask you in brief was this: while Kargil was a face-to-face war with the enemy, you could see them up there, you had to fight your way through, losing men. But Operation Sindhu was something different. We never crossed the border, yet we inflicted huge damage. How different is Operation Sindhu from the earlier battles, sir?
What I feel is that it was a kind of a kinetic warfare only through aerial means. And where it has been quite lethal. And we were able to, first was take out the terror camps, which was the only agenda. It's only after, and it was a wonderful show of a kinetic process through aerial means, where a projectile could go. You don't require boots on ground, because the intention of the country, the nation, was that we are only interested in destroying your terror camps, and you're not being able to curb your terror camps. So that was, it showcased that. The second stage was showcasing the military prowess when Pakistan tried to do a misadventure. And the second process was, the military prowess was pinpoint hitting the A bases and taking away their defense system. If you look at it, I look at it this way. It is one of the unique kind of a warfare and aerial supremacy, which I'm very sure the West and the Americans, including the Russians, are going to do a case study on. You, in such a high density aerial warfare, high density, you look at Pakistan and India, the Western sector. In that, with so much of overlapping defense grids, the supremacy of the Indian Air Force missile system is a case study in itself. You look at Israel, you look at the Desert Storm where Americans did, it was a single supremacy of air warfare. They were able to decimate Iraq. And you look at Russia and Ukraine also, for that matter. So if you look at from that, I am looking at it purely from a military perspective, and with the kind of density of aerial density which the Indo-Pakistan have. And in spite of that density, the supremacy shown by the Indian Air Force and the missile system, both from surface to air and air to air, is something worth, analyzing, and can be a great case study, which I'm very sure all the militaries in the world is going to do that. And unfortunately, we have got involved with a narrative warfare. That's again a different ball game, and that's not our expertise, to be very honest, at least for me. That's how I'll sum up Ops Dur.
All have been speaking about this narrative part of it. In fact, we've been telling that Pakistani fake news gangs have been kind of claiming that not one, not two, not three, but 5 Rafales and few Sukhois thrown in here and there. And now we know what the Indian Air Force actually did, that they sent decoys of drones looking like aircraft, and the Pakistanis kept shooting at that. But as you rightly indicated, this was a war where technology was at play. We saw a huge amount of participation from various officers, men who've been trained in this art. Many people in the services actually retire without fighting a war. But I think this time the youngsters got a chance to prove their mettle, be it the Grenadiers or others. We'll discuss that also in detail as we go along, how important training is when the final battle actually happens. And that is a big ball game, Colonel Dasgupta. And I'm sure that in the next episode, which we'll discuss, we will take up this in detail, because Ukraine, Russia, Israel, Gaza, we're seeing Houthis firing at Israel, Iran firing at Israel, Lebanese firing at Israel, and Israel fighting back, the Iron Dome. Everything shows that boots on the ground are important, but technology is also important. So your BrahMos, your Scalps, your Raptors, your Akashtis, everything needs to work. And as DGMO said that day, if Thomo can't get it, Lily will. And I think that was a great moment to say that our defense system worked extremely well. But we will analyze that in detail in the next podcast that we have, Colonel Dasgupta. And it was wonderful having you. And I'm sure next time you're in Hyderabad, we will catch you, and we will actually put you in a studio and we will talk to you in detail about all that.
Yeah, definitely, sir. Definitely.
Thank you very much for sparing the time, and wonderful talking to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Jai
Jain, sir. Jai. Thank you very much, sir. Bye.